think that Mr. Natoli would like the town board to determine that once the decision from the appellate division concerning the water company case has been rendered, that the date for any rollback, if rollback is called for, would be determined by this board. Mr. Natoli would like it to be determined now. I think Mr. O'Rourke would like it to be also held in abeyance until such time as that decision. Maybe Mr. O'Rourke could speak to that himself.
Not to put you on the spot, Rick, would you like to speak to that if you're ready this evening?
If I may, Richard O'Rourke on behalf of Independent Sewer Works Corporation. I spoke with Mr. Natoli late this afternoon. Mr. Natoli indicated that it would be difficult for him to get here this evening, and we knew that the matter was on the agenda for discussion among the board members, and quite frankly, we were not aware of whether, in fact, we'd have that opportunity to speak, or you would just be conferring amongst yourselves. I, in speaking with Mr. Natoli, stated that I would not make any statements or advocate one way or the other in terms of our positions. You have all of the correspondence. We recognize, and I know the board recognizes, that rate making is a rather complex area, esoteric area, if I may say, of the law. And quite frankly, I'm here to observe whatever discussion. I did say to Mr. Natoli, and I'm going to be true to my word, that I would not advocate, did not want to answer any questions. I know we've deluged you with information over the past several years, representing the Sewage Works corporations. What we had proposed was a petition to roll back the rates modestly in accordance with the decisions made thus far by the Public Service Commission. Of course, Mr. Natoli is advocating an 80% rollback, which, quite frankly, the PSC never decided. So the information is before you, and at this juncture, there's really nothing else that I can say.
Thank you. Any questions?
We just have to get an expert, I guess. That's the
Right.
because I don't think any of us have the ability to determine what the rate should be.
Will, can you advise us of the status of finding such an expert to advise us?
Well, I've got one individual that seemed to be approvable by both parties. The drawback is I need to get a firm commitment from him as to what charges would be forthcoming, because one of the objectors is in bankruptcy, and any expenses that they would incur would have to be approved by the bankruptcy court before they could agree to sharing in the expense. I've been having difficulty getting that reduced to writing. So once I do that, we can push the process along.
Thank you. Any further questions? Item 4, New York State Comptroller Report, Reply, and Implementation. There's been some dialogue amongst my colleagues and with the community regarding a report by an audit over the summer by the New York State Comptroller's Office regarding financial expenditures in the town of Southeast for the past few years. The audit period was January 1, 2009 through March 2010. And again, they were here this summer. So we're in the process of making a reply to the New York State Comptroller's Office and thinking our way through as far as implementing what the Comptroller is demanding that we do. Bottom line is the Comptroller is demanding that we initiate economic competition for public expenditures. Of course, this is routine in other communities. It's a novel idea in the town of Southeast. The Comptroller noted that in 8 of 11 significant, with respect to 8 of 11 instances, vendors of significant public expenditures or involving significant public expenditures, that there had been no economic competition. And in fact, repeatedly, this board and also the preceding board, which had two different members, routinely voted 3-2 to defeat economic competition for public expenditures. In my opinion, that's wrong. In the opinion of others, that's wrong. In the opinion of the comptroller, that's wrong. And it's got to change. So that's where we are.
As Yogi Berra once said, it's deja vu all over again. Here we are again. We're discussing what is the contents of a draft confidential report. That's what the supervisor is speaking to. Gratefully, he hasn't gone into the great detail that he did before, and also gratefully, the time period by which the report should have been responded to by the supervisor has passed. The responses are in, and I can tell you all that I have been told by the comptroller's office that the final report, the report that will be distributed by the state to the public so that all of you can have copies of it after input, will be forthcoming. Once that report is received, this town board has a period of time in which it then needs to send a report back saying what we will do in response to whatever is contained in the report. The supervisor sent a letter, I believe it was on October 8th, to the comptroller's office, which letter stated what he considered to be a response to the draft report. I received a communication from the comptroller's office, and that communication said that we were open as a board to respond since there was some debate as to the contents of the supervisor's letter. In the interim then, 3 of the board members did send a response to the comptroller's report, and that response was sent out and I believe received, if it wasn't yesterday or the day before, actually it was on Tuesday, it was received. In addition, Councilmember Yee, thinking that we would not include any of his thoughts, sent a letter to the comptroller, making certain that his thoughts were also made aware. And in fact, I had spoken to a member of the comptroller's office to ask if we could have an additional day in which the board would answer based on the fact that I had received, as well as the other 2 board members, Councilmember Yee's response. I believe it was on the evening of October 17th. It was after 11 p.m., and the response was due on the next day. Mr. Ellis of that office said, yes, that would be fine. 3 board members sent out their responses. The responses were in everyone's mailbox today. That's the first time I saw the full response, and the bottom line is we will have an answer from the comptroller's office, at which time we will be in a better position to respond. As far as what has occurred or what's going to be in that report, I can't tell you, because I'm not a member of that office. What I can tell you is that we have responded, and that, in effect, giving to the comptroller's office of the state of New York, which requested that the initial report remain confidential, a response, which I believe is a very thoughtful response, and a response that takes into account the recommendations that were made in the draft report, which I will not share because it was confidential, although various news agencies have the full report because I believe that the supervisor disseminated that report to them. Setting that aside, I can assure everyone that the response was sent out. We will now get a full draft report, a full final report that you all can view, and which we will respond to.
There's a question in my mind before we take a look at the replies and begin to plot a course about how to proceed with respect to public expenditures, because the pages to the reply that you mentioned, Councilwoman Hudak, are not numbered, but page 2 starts with a number 3, an item number 3, and continues item number 4. There's no 1 or 2 in the material.
Yeah, we didn't have to. This wasn't a specific, it didn't have to be a specific response to anything, and certainly the response that the supervisor sent out, I don't recall had any numbers at all, and addressed the usual and standard issues of gravy trains and, you know, the old guard, etc. It had nothing to do with any numbered responses. And of course, we were relying on the supervisor to provide a response after speaking to the individual members of the board, and it just didn't happen. So
I
as a
phoned you, Liz, you
result...
didn't call me back.
Absolutely not. The
Yeah,
letter
was.
was sent out in an ad hoc manner, repeating the same information that anyone who comes here or anyone that watches these meetings has heard every time. It's the usual disjointed references to gravy trains and old guards and all of these other items, which are all couched in negativity, nothing positive, and that's what that letter was. At least our letter was a letter which identified the concerns, responded, said that we will work on responses. Councilmember Yee's letter was stated basically, we will do this, we will do that. Certainly, we are the guardians of the town tax dollars, as the Chief Budget Officer or Supervisor Wrights knows, although we don't quite know what's happening since we don't get monthly reports, but that being set aside too. What's really important to us is that we got out a response despite it not being our individual responsibilities. We were told by the comptroller, due to the contents of the supervisor's letter, that we could send out a board response with 3 board members' names on it and/or have a board resolution. Well, there wasn't time enough to have a board resolution. So 3 board members signed it, myself, Councilmember Cullen, and Councilmember Gross, who, by the way, is not here this evening because he made certain there were 2 dates this month in which 2 board members couldn't make it. Councilmember Yee couldn't make it on the 7th, and Councilmember Gross couldn't make it on the 21st. Councilmember Gross specifically said, I will miss the meeting, one of the meetings, so that Councilmember Yee can be here, so I wanted to make certain before there were any statements made. I already have an email today about Councilmember Gross's non-appearance. I wanted to make that record straight, and that's in one of our, I think it's one of the meetings that are probably on, streaming on the web. That's on our Town Southeast webpage. It's not on the Southeast Saves or whatever. What it is our Southeast, the other one, which one? Southeast Matters. It's on our official Town of Southeast webpage. So if everyone can do us a favor and, you know, if you doubt what I'm saying, please go back and look on that, or we'll hand you one of our CDs.
Okay, thanks for that. Well, we're looking at the replies. Well, first of all, with respect to the issue of confidentiality, I had asked the confidentiality attaches to the municipality, not to the comptroller's office or to the report. So it was our report, and it was ours to discuss. And since it involves millions of dollars, and that's not an overstatement, millions of dollars in public spending, it's only fair that you know how your money is being spent and how the comptroller is reporting to us about it. Now, with respect to the reply, let's look at the reply that Councilman Hudak mentioned with respect to signed by 3 members of the town board. Item 7A lists the various vendors concerning which the comptroller had expressed grave reservations that significant public expenditures were being placed and contracts were being awarded without economic competition. And again, that's not the economic model in other communities. Item A. AKRF went through a formal RFP process in 1997 as part of the master plan update. 1997, of course, this is 2010, was 13 years ago, and the comptroller's office insists that economic competition be allowed within the 3-year window. That conforms with the standard, corporate analysis too, which is 6 months is considered the short term, 6 months to 3 years is considered intermediate, and beyond 3 years is considered the long term. So the fact, or the concession, or the admission that AKRF is not, which is the town planning agency, has not been subject to economic competition in 13 years is startling. Item B, Sterling Environmental went through a formal RFP process in 1996. So that's even farther back in time. Now, AKRF, we'll get to their billings in a minute, but it's been millions over 14 years. Sterling, too, has billed considerable, enormous sums since 1996. We'll get to their billings, too.